Like Javier Lopez said on the broadcast, Logan Webb pitched a shutout against the A's, and then Blake Snell said, "Hold my beer," and went out and no-hit the Cincinnati Reds in a very tough place to pitch, showing the strength of this team and what could carry them to the playoffs and what would make them a super dangerous team in October.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspek, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And coming up on today's show, like I said, Logan Webb, "Hold my beer," says Blake Snell, as he goes out and no-hits the Cincinnati Reds in the Great American Small Park, which is, obviously not actually what it's called, Great American Ballpark, where it's a tough place to pitch. And, Snell was just so good, and it was leading, it wasn't like shocking that he did this given the way he had been pitching. And if you just look at his last, 5 starts, it's just been unbelievable. I mean, the previous start was against the Rockies, and he went out and struck out 15 in 6 innings, and no one had ever done that in a start of 6 innings or less, struck out 15. And so that was obviously incredible. And then he follows it up with this. So this is what we were talking about when we said, second half Blake Snell, or like the Blake Snell who essentially, like, since he came off the injured list for the second time, he's just been untouchable. He's got a 0.55 ERA in 5 starts, 33 innings, 41 strikeouts, only 10 walks, very manageable and reasonable. 1 homer, 2 runs allowed, 8 hits allowed. 33 innings, 8 hits, 41 strikeouts. When your strikeout to hit ratio is 41-8, that's just phenomenal. And what else can you say? There are so many facts from this no-hitter that we're just gonna kind of read off, because just what an incredible game, and the velocity that he had, the command that he had. And as I said over and over, if anyone doubted it, now it's hard it's just smacking you in the face with how dominant Snell has been lately, culminating in this no-hitter. But, obviously he wasn't the guy who had a 9 ERA through his first however many innings in the season. He is someone who won the National League Cy Young Award last year after starting out the year poorly. I think it was 9 or 10 starts into the year, his ERA was up in the 5s, and then he just went on a historic run of dominance over 20 starts to finish out the year, and ended up easily coasting to a Cy Young Award. That's how good he was for a 20 start stretch in a row. So just imagine if he can go out there and do this not this obviously, but pitch. He's just been untouchable. 5 innings, no runs. 7 innings, no runs. 6 innings at LA, 2 runs. 6 innings, no runs, 15 strikeouts. 9 innings, no runs, no hits, 11 strikeouts, 3 walks. Wow. And so, yeah, we're just going to read off some notes courtesy of MLB.com and Sarah Langs of MLB.com, a lot of different contributors from MLB.com, and I think if it's not MLB.com, I'll cite the other source. And that is, the first one to come here is that paired with Logan Webb's complete game shutout on July 31st, Blake Snell's no-hitter marks the first time the Giants have had back-to-back complete game shutouts since August 19th and 20th, 2002, when Jason Schmidt and Livan Hernandez did it against the Mets and Marlins, respectively. So 22 years ago was the last time they had back-to-back complete game shutouts. And not only that, I mean, a 1-0 shutout for Webb and then a no-hitter for Snell, unreal. And then another note here, Snell is just the third AL/NL pitcher since 1901 with 25 plus strikeouts, 2 hits or fewer, and no runs allowed over a 2-game span, joining Max Scherzer in 2015 and Randy Johnson in 2001. And another note, Snell is the third AL/NL pitcher since 1900 to strike out 15 batters and throw a no-hitter in consecutive starts, joining James Paxton in 2018 and Max Scherzer in 2015. And another note, Snell has 26 strikeouts in his last 2 starts, tied with Madison Bumgarner and Jason Schmidt, 2015 and 2006, respectively, for second most by a Giants pitcher in a 2-outing span since at least 1901, behind only John Montefusco, who had 27 in 1975. Also, a final note here, the last pitch that Snell threw was 97.8 miles an hour. When you see on the radar gun, if it says 98, the way rounding works, if it's 0.5 or higher, you round up. This is just like math standards. You round up if it's 0.5, like 97.5 equals 98 on the radar gun, and 97.4 equals 97 on the radar gun. So anyway, 97.8 is 98 miles an hour to Ellie De La Cruz, who flied out to right to end the game. He only threw 2 harder pitches in the entire game. Both came in the 3rd inning against Santiago Espinal when he threw 98.3 and 97.9. So he, his 100 and whatever 13th, he was very efficient in the final 3 innings. That was obviously super important. And I mean, ultimately the takeaway from what we've seen here with Snell and with Webb and those consecutive starts, Kyle Harrison did not have a good start kind of right after that, and the Giants lost the middle game. But then Robbie Ray, yes, gave up 2 solo homers, but those were the only runs he allowed in 5 innings, and he struck out 9. And so, Farhan Zaidi said at the deadline, when they didn't trade Blake Snell and they didn't make, major additions to the offense or whatever, that he believes they have the best starting rotation in baseball. And those statements look pretty good, and accurate when you see what those 3 have done. And for Harrison, his last start before this one in Cincinnati was pretty dominant against the Rockies. I know it's the Rockies, but still, Harrison is having a good season. And then you look at the kind of lineup pitching matchups for this upcoming series against the Nationals, and it's Logan Webb in the first game, Hayden Birdsong in the second game, then it's Snell again, and then Harrison, and then you're going to come back home and then have Robbie Ray. So every pitching matchup you see, you feel like you have a good chance to win the game, and that's exactly why they held on to Blake Snell, and they're now just 1 game under 500. And so coming up in just a minute, we're going to get into the importance of this series win that they just won in Cincinnati, and how now going to Washington, D.C., it's time to finally get over the hump, get to the 500 mark tonight. When you have this huge pitching advantage with Webb versus Patrick Corbin, get to 500 and then hopefully shoot past it and never look back. So we'll get into all of that. And then later on, Tyler Fitzgerald can't stop homering. And oh, by the way, he's the rookie of the month in the month of July. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, this episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. The benefits, well, you can stay hydrated while traveling, going to summer festivals, or after a night out. You can find all of your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry to lemon lime to pina colada. Now, always non-GMO, vegan, important to me. Yes, I'm a vegan. Gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. Tear, pour, live more. One stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the Giants, the importance of the Giants winning this series in Cincinnati. I said it, I predicted 2 out of 3. I kind of said it could go either way, and it ultimately came down to the third game of the series. Giants fell behind 2-0, but they came back and ended up having a huge 8th inning where they were already ahead by a run, but then they broke out for 5, and then it turned out to be a blowout, an 8-2 win. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be talking about the game in Washington, D.C. Nationals 10 games under 500. They have Patrick Corbin going on the mound, who has a 5.88 ERA, and you've got Logan Webb, who just threw a complete game shutout his last time out. You just have a huge pitching advantage here, and that's what the Giants hope they're going to see for the rest of the season, essentially, is lots of times where I'm saying they have the pitching advantage, and then hopefully they can capitalize on that and bring home a win, and that would bring them to 500. So we'll be discussing if they're able to do that tomorrow. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. For your second listen today, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Giants winning this series obviously was huge, especially because for me, I was like a little bit on the fence. Like, do you win this series? Do you not? Like, I was asked in a mailbag episode, like, what do you predict for this road trip? And I said 4-3 or better. And that entailed possibly, like, if you lose the series in Cincinnati, maybe winning 3 out of 4 in Washington, D.C., or maybe winning the series in Cincinnati and at least splitting in Washington, D.C. And so now that you've won this series in Cincinnati, then you're going to Washington, D.C. with a chance to get greedy, because like I said, with those pitching matchups with Webb and Snell going, and then your young guys Harrison and Birdsong, at least with the Webb and Snell games, you have a huge advantage. Like, if we were to look at the FanDuel odds on these games, the Giants are going to be favorites in at least 2 of them and probably all 4. And so if you can just capitalize on that advantage, you should be able to at least split this series. Bob Melvin said it. I agree. It's hard to win, even 3 out of 4 in a series, because that's a 75% winning percentage, and that would equate to, over the course of 162 games, if you win 75% of your games, that comes out to 121 and a half wins. So it's hard to play at that pace even against a subpar team. So it's hard to predict that you're going to win 3 out of 4, and it's also hard to predict that you're going to lose 3 out of 4. So I say at least a split, but try to get greedy. I mean, sweep these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Giants are far enough back where winning just 2, you may end up missing out on the playoffs by a game or 2 and look back and say, man, we had some chances there in Washington, D.C., and we couldn't take advantage. So right now, the Giants find themselves 56 and 57. There's just not that many games left in the season. They're 4.5 games out of a playoff spot. There are a bunch of teams ahead of them, not actually that many. And I really think the Pirates and the Cardinals look to me like teams, just the Pirates are the Pirates. I know they've got Paul Skeens, but nonetheless, I know their run differential is actually pretty solid at -5. And but the Cardinals are at -42, and that's kind of catching up to them has a predicted record of just 52-60, and they're outperforming that by 5 wins. So I feel like the Cardinals are going to fall back a little bit. Pirates just seem like not as good of a team as the Giants, and so I don't have a hard time at all seeing the Giants passing the Cardinals and the Pirates, and then there's just the Mets between the Giants and the wild card teams. But the problem is the wild card teams right now, especially the Padres and Diamondbacks, are playing exceptionally well. The Giants are 7-3 in their last 10 games. Both the Padres and the D-backs are 8-2. So that, as well as the Giants have played in their last 10, they've lost ground to the Diamondbacks and the Padres a little bit by 1 game. So 4.5 back. The kind of silver lining there is that the Braves, Padres, and D-backs, who are the 3 wildcard teams currently, there's no separation really between those 3. And so any one of those 3 could like fall off and a spot could kind of open up, you know. So the Braves are only 9 over 500. They've lost Acuna for the year. They've lost Spencer Strider for the year. Ozzie Albies is out right now. They're just not the same team that they've been the last couple of years. And Padres are red hot. Diamondbacks are red hot. So, yeah, you've got to pass some teams. But, you know, within 2 days, you could be just having the Mets ahead of you, you know, and then the playoff teams. And so there's like I said, not that many games left, but there's enough games where I'm not so concerned about having to pass a couple of teams you're within a game and a half of just to be like right there, basically, with the playoffs within reach. And so let me just see quickly how many games exactly are left, because it's hard to do the math on the fly here. They've played 113 already, so there's only 49 games remaining. And so, it would be an interesting thought experiment to look at how many games do I think they need to win to make the playoffs, and what would their record have to be to get there? Let's just say it's 86 wins. They're at 56 now, so that's simple math. That would be 30-19. That would be a good run, especially because they're on a good run right now. They've won 7 of 9, so that would be 37-21 to finish out the year. So that would be a great stretch. So if it takes 86, then 30-19, that's not easy to do, but they kind of have to do something like that, whether it's 30-19 or 28-21. I mean, that seems more attainable. That would be 84 wins. That's what the Diamondbacks got in with last year and snuck in as the final wild card team and ended up going to the World Series. So I don't know if 84 will be enough this season. When I look at the playoff odds on Fangraphs and we look at the teams likely to make it right now, you're looking at in terms of wildcard teams, the Braves, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks. The Braves are projected to win about 89 games, the Padres about 88, and the Diamondbacks 86.6. So that's the problem, is that it might take like 87, and then the tiebreakers would come into play if you say the Diamondbacks do win 87, and so do you. To win 87, 31-18 would be what it would take. So that is why the Giants' playoff odds, according to Fangraphs, are just 13.1%. That's not 0. It's something. And also that projection is a median projection. And so they run these simulations 10,000 times, and that is the middle result. So half the time in these simulations, the Diamondbacks and Padres and Braves lose less than that projection. Half the time they win more. And so there are worlds out there where they all win less than these projections. But, the odds are what they are. Farhan Zaidi, I watched his little presser after the trade deadline, and he basically said the same thing, which is that it's hard to you look at the odds, but what the odds tell us is really that they just have to have a really good stretch of baseball. And if they don't, they're going to miss the playoffs. And if they do, they have a chance to get in. And so they clearly are trying to make it. The trade deadline is over. If you look around the league, I know some have asked about like Jazz Chisum. I know he had a good first few games with the Yankees, but we're talking Jazz Chisum is not some kind of great player. He's put up a career 8.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement in 410 games. It's not like his best season was 2.6, which is, both Bailey and Chapman and even like Tyler Fitzgerald is at that level right now. And Elliot Ramos is about at that level right now. And I get it. He's like a dynamic power speed player, but at the same time, he's been injured a lot. And I don't know, there just weren't that many impact players moved. And there also, as sellers, there weren't that many impact prospects moved either. There weren't really any like real impact prospects moved. And so, he brought that up in regards to Snell. It was like, yeah, you have to consider it if they're offering you something really impactful, but it wasn't there. It was more like a package of 3 to 5 prospects who could be somewhere in your top 30, but not like a Jackson Holiday or some truly impact prospect for a Blake Snell. So anyway, I understand going for it when you have a chance, and we just saw what they're capable of, and right now they're playing well, and this is the weak part of the schedule, and the Nationals are part of this, and so you've got to go in there and take advantage, and it starts tonight. So coming up in just a minute, we'll turn our attention to Mr. Tyler Fitzgerald, who just cannot stop homering, and also just youth in general for the Giants and how that's been a big part of this season. The main, I would say, part of this season has been youth breaking through and being good, not just like kind of being on the team, but actually performing. And Tyler Fitzgerald with the homers and just winning player of the month. Unbelievable. So we'll get into it, rookie of the month. We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, myself included. It's the most exciting and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, which I've taken advantage of a few times, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Also, PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California. I'm playing tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my lineup right there. I'm taking more than 3.5 strikeouts for Logan Webb and more than 2.5 earned runs allowed for Patrick Corbin, who the Giants seem to always get to. That is something that has a payout of $30 to pay 51. So I think it's 1.7 times payout. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. All lowercase, by the way. LOCKEDONMLB. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, as promised, we are going to discuss the youth movement and Tyler Fitzgerald, who just cannot stop homering, and how that's, no matter how the season goes, there have been some significant bright spots in that regard. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down game 1. Be very disappointing if they lose this game. You got a huge advantage with Logan Webb against Patrick Corbin. Like I said, they always seem to get to Patrick Corbin. Let's see if they can keep that going. It's been a disastrous contract for Corbin, an example of how long-term deals for pitchers often don't go well. Hasn't gone well basically from the start. Year 1, he was actually good, and then since, he's been bad. I think it's a 6-year deal, finally, mercifully over after this season. But also, a reminder about Postcast with Eric Engel after the game, after every game. Check out Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Eric goes live after every game, almost every game. Sometimes he needs a day off now and then, but still, almost every game. So hit the bell notification button to be notified when he goes live. For instant reaction, you can join in on the conversation, and then that feed, once he's done, shows up on the Locked On Giants podcast feed everywhere but YouTube. because we have our own YouTube channel and he has his own, because he also does Warriors and 49ers in season. So just be sure to check that out. So Giants and their youth movement, it's been just an enormous part of the 2024 season. By the way, Giants rank 11th with their position players in Fangraphs wins above replacement. 11th out of 30 teams. So just another example. Their position player group has not been the issue. It's been the pitching. And then you look at the pitching and you say, this should be a really good pitching staff. And so it's easy to see how they could. I get it. They've been inconsistent at times offensively, but I don't know. They've been above average kind of across the board in a lot of offensive categories, context neutral offensive categories. Anyway, let's get to Tyler Fitzgerald, who homered again. I've got some notes on him. So he hit another home run in a 5-run eighth. Giants players to hit 10-plus home runs in a 16-game span: Tyler Fitzgerald, Barry Bonds, Jeff Kent, Matt Williams, Willie McCovey, Jim Ray Hart, Willie Mays, Orlando Cepeda, Walker Cooper, and Mel Ott. That's the list. So that is quite a list with Hall of Famers and borderline Hall of Famers left and right. 10 homers in 16 games for Tyler Fitzgerald. He's the first Giants player with 10 homers in a 16-game span since Bonds in 2003. So 21 years, and it's Bonds that we're comparing him to here. And I also want to just point out, I have a note from this game yesterday, that Matt Chapman made an unbelievable play that preserved a 3-2 lead. It was such a good play. The announcer on Roku or whatever it was, it's the Reds announcer normally with Javier Lopez. He just assumed the run scored. He said, De La Cruz scores. And it was, if they get the out at first, the inning ends with no run. And so he thought, no chance. Matt Chapman was playing super deep, charged the ball, barehanded it, and fired a missile across the diamond. It was just, I thought, no chance. And he made that play, and it preserved a 3-2 lead. So Chapman has just been playing great, and he's just so consistent. He's got 17 homers on the year. But along with Chapman, the kind of leaders on this team offensively and defensively, Patrick Bailey, with what he's done defensively, and been, he's slumping at the plate right now, but overall been a little above average offensively. Tyler Fitzgerald, 180 weighted runs created plus, playing shortstop, hitting 309, 369 on base, 632 slugging. So that's an unbelievable slugging percentage. It's a 324 isolated power. That's like Judgian. It's Bondsian. He's done it in 50 games. I mean, it's a small-ish sample, but at the same time, it's not a minuscule sample. He's striking out a lot, but he's also homering like a lot. Like we said, 10 homers in a 16-game stretch is just unbelievable. And then, of course, Elliot Ramos has been a big story of this season as well. Tyler Fitzgerald has passed him on the Fangraphs wins above replacement list in 50 games compared to 74 for Ramos. That's how good Tyler Fitzgerald has been. So, Ramos was the story of the last several months, and Fitzgerald has been the story of this month or July and beyond. And so it's just unreal what Tyler Fitzgerald is doing, and he wins National League Rookie of the Month in July. Well deserved. And so Bailey just emerging. I know he's struggling at the plate, but behind it, he's arguably the best defensive player in baseball. And so, that was a draft pick by the current regime. Tyler Fitzgerald, a draft pick by the current regime. So you can't say they haven't been able to draft and develop anymore, because we're seeing the fruits of some of that. And then if you look on the pitching side and you look at what Kyle Harrison has been able to do, which his last start kind of blew up some of the numbers, but another player drafted and developed by the current regime, and Hayden Birdsong with his 2.97 ERA, drafted and developed by the current regime, etc. So the point isn't about the current regime. I feel like I need to point that out because it can be confusing. Like Elliot Ramos, not drafted and developed drafted by the old regime, developed, I guess, by the current. But nonetheless, it's just fair to point out that this was a knock on the current regime for so long, was like they haven't been able to develop young players. Well, now they have. You know, these guys, Fitzgerald, Bailey, Birdsong, Harrison, and others mixed in. Also, by the way, Gerard Encarnacion had a nice series. He was either striking out or crushing the ball. He hit a homer. He hit a missile double. So very intrigued by him still. And he's only had 9 plate appearances, but he's either striking out or crushing the ball. So it's going to be interesting. He'll be in there definitely against Patrick Corbin. So maybe look out for another home run from him against the vulnerable Corbin. So anyway, they signed him out of the Mexican League. He's only 26 years old, and that would be quite a find if he can turn out to be something too. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. And so just once again, congratulations to Blake Snell on his no-hitter. He had never pitched in through 8. I don't know if he'd ever even pitched into the 8th. He had definitely never pitched into the 9th. So he finally gets the monkey off his back there, and it's a shutout and it's a no-hitter. So just congratulations to him. What a performance in that ballpark. We saw the next day with Harrison, not easy to do. And even with Robbie Ray giving up 2 homers, not easy to pitch there. So anyway, really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Congratulations to Blake Snell. Thanks again for listening. See you tomorrow. You are now Locked On Giants.